Hello, my name's Christina McDonald and I'm the author of The Night Olivia Fell and Behind Every Lie. I'm here today to do my third in a series Ask Me Anything session. And my first question is a really great one. How did you get into writing and when did you first want to write books? I've always loved writing. Even when I was really just very small and could only hold a crayon, I used to write just silly fairy tales for my sisters. And I always told them stories. So it's always kind of been something I've loved, something I've wanted to do, something I've been passionate about. As I got older and I went into middle school and then into high school, I wrote short stories and poetry, and I moved into journalism then when I got into college. And when I graduated from college, I became a journalist and I moved from that into digital copywriting. So I think writing has always been the foundation of any job that I've ever had, and it's always been what I've wanted to do. But actually sitting down to put a story together, that didn't happen until a few years ago when I wrote The Night Olivia Fell was the first book I had published. And it just takes a lot of work and persistence to do that. So I think that all of those jobs that I did prior to that really helped lay the foundation, and they were just steps in that direction. And ultimately I found out that I preferred making up stories rather than telling facts in journalism. So it was always, I think, the career that I was going to choose at the end of the day. Next question, how do you pick the settings for your books? I like my stories to be really atmospheric. So to me, the most atmospheric place in the world is the Pacific Northwest, which is where I'm from. Seattle is where I'm from. And everywhere around Seattle, we have everything. We have evergreen trees and mountains and lakes and rivers and the ocean. So we have so much that it just feels really natural to me to set all of my stories in and around that setting in those areas. So all of my stories so far have all included a fictional town that is an amalgamation of those beautiful bits of nature that I grew up around. Where do you get your inspiration from? Inspiration comes from everywhere. For me, it usually comes from news clippings that I might read or something I might see on the news. It also comes from what would you do sort of scenarios. And then after that, you need to be really passionate about that theme in order to write for 80,000 to 100 words. So I think you need to really have something to say and be very passionate about it. So I make sure that I have the idea and that I'm very passionate about it. And that's where my inspiration comes from. Do you pick character names from people you know? No, I don't. I've been asked this question before, and I don't know what the link is between a character name and why I've chosen it. I really don't know. In my head, I have a vision of what that person, that character looks like and what they act like and what that name is that matches them, but I'm not really sure where that comes from. Was it your love of reading that inspired you to write, or have you always wanted to be an author? I think it's a chicken and egg thing. I love to write and I love to read. It just goes in a circle like that. I'm not really sure which came first. I will say that I think I've been able to write because I read so much, and because when you read a lot, you sort of naturally understand the structure and the rules of story and conflict and character and how they all play a really big role within writing. Do you get to write full-time, or do you have a day job? So I gave up my day job about 2 years ago so that I could write full-time. It was a really big decision, but I think if you want to be taken seriously as a writer, you have to take your writing seriously. And so I did that. I gave up my job and I focused on writing. And I think, did I make sacrifices? Absolutely. We ate a lot of rice at first. But is it worth it? Absolutely. I'm living, I'm working at the job that I love doing, and I'm writing stories, and I think that always has to be worth it. What is your editing process? How do you go about filling in plot holes? I don't really plot before I get started on a book. I just write. And then I go back in later and I fill in all the blanks and I fill out my characters a lot more. The process is that I write a first draft and then I edit it. Then I send it into my agent, who also edits it. And then we send it into my editor, who also edits it. So it's very much a collaborative process. I write the initial story, but they help make it into a book. So those are all the questions I really have for this week. I have time for this week anyways. But I'll be back next week to answer more questions. If you have a question, just pop it into the comments, and I'll be back next week. Thanks very much. Bye bye.